In everyday interactions, it's not unusual to hear women apologizing constantly. In the supermarket, at the office, in a narrow hallway, those repeated sorries mark their exchanges. They seem harmless, almost automatic, but they reveal a social conditioning that starts early in life. Yet this constant reflex disappears in another context, the intimate relationship. When a real offense happens, a hurtful word, an action that crosses a boundary, those same women suddenly seem unable to say a simple, "I'm sorry." This paradox fuels confusion and sometimes bitterness in their male partners. This contradiction isn't just an individual quirk. It reflects deep mechanisms, inherited from evolution and reinforced by culture. To understand it, we need to separate two very different kinds of apologies. The public, everyday ones are social signals. They're meant to avoid conflict, to show peaceful intent in environments where space and voice are often contested. They cost nothing and require no self-examination. Apologizing for taking too much space in a line docenti demand real accountability. Intimate apologies, however, are another matter. They require admitting fault, exposing vulnerability, and implicitly promising change, and that's where the difficulty lies. To acknowledge wrongdoing in the private circle is to surrender psychological ground to the very person one depends on emotionally. Historically, that move could carry heavy consequences. Evolutionary psychologists remind us that for millennia, women's survival often depended on maintaining stable partnerships. Admitting a serious fault could trigger anger, rejection, or abandonment threats with potentially fatal consequences in ancestral environments. Under those conditions, it was safer to repair the bond by other means: feeding, comforting, seducing, distracting. These strategies of emotional repair allowed harmony to return without the risks of explicit admission. This pattern hasn't vanished with modernity. It lingers in emotional reflexes. When conflict arises today, many women still instinctively reach for those same ancestral tools. Cooking a favorite meal, offering intimacy, sending a tender message. The goal isn't to avoid the issue, but to repair what they perceive as the real damage their partner's emotional state. For them, the problem isn't the act itself, but the pain it caused. Here lies the clash of perspectives. Many men see conflict as a simple equation. Behavior leads to consequence. Solution equals acknowledgement plus change. The logic is linear, almost contractual. For many women, the real issue is the hurt feelings. Their strategy is therefore to soothe, not to dissect causes. This divergence creates the impression of avoidance for men and a sense of injustice for women. The misunderstanding deepens because superficial apologies abound in public life. To men, that looks like proof that women clearly know how to apologize. So why won't they do it when it matters? The answer lies in function. Public apologies are ritual gestures, smoothing interactions without any stakes. Intimate apologies are confessions that alter the balance of power. That distinction is crucial. It explains why a woman who says sorry 100 times a day in public might remain silent after hurting the man she loves. Her silence isn't indifference. It's a protective strategy. To fully grasp this paradox, it helps to examine what researchers call the problem definition frame. When conflict arises, men and women often don't define the problem in the same way. For many men, the logic is straightforward. A specific act created a negative effect. The act itself is the problem. The solution is simple: acknowledge the wrongdoing and promise not to repeat it. This approach mirrors how many men handle challenges in other areas of life. Find the cause, fix it, move on. For many women, the logic shifts. The act itself isn't seen as the core of the problem. What matters is the emotional state that followed. If her partner is hurt or angry, that distress becomes the true issue. The solution, then, is to repair the emotional damage. That's why gestures that may look trivial to men, making a comforting meal, sending a sweet message, suggesting quality time, are sincere attempts at resolution. They are aimed at soothing the wound, not dissecting the cause. This difference in perception fuels a vicious cycle. The man waits for an apology he never receives. The woman multiplies her efforts to heal his mood, but these gestures are perceived as evasions. He feels ignored. She feels misunderstood. Each doubles down on their strategy, and the gap widens. The roots of this difference lie deep in human history. For thousands of years, social roles were complementary. Men maintained order through confrontation and explicit rules. Women preserved cohesion by diffusing tension and managing emotions. Both strategies were crucial for survival. But these ancestral tools now collide in the intimacy of modern couples. When a woman relies on emotional repair, she activates an old mechanism: restore harmony to secure the bond. When a man demands acknowledgement, he activates another old mechanism: clarify responsibilities to preserve trust. Neither is wrong. But their strategies forged for group survival clash in today's 101 relationships. There's also the matter of vulnerability. For many women, apologizing in an intimate setting feels like handing over a weapon. Admitting fault means accepting blame for the fracture, and when they already feel they carry much of the burden managing the household. Sustaining emotional balance, making sacrifices, the idea of adding guilt on top can feel unbearable. Saying "I'm sorry" is not just a word. It's the risk of having that fault remembered, thrown back at them later. Culture reinforces this tension. Women are socialized early to feel responsible for relational harmony. But within couples where they already feel they shoulder most of the invisible labor organizing, anticipating, smoothing conflicts, being asked to apologize can seem unfair. As if on top of doing the majority of the emotional work, they must also absorb the blame whenever things go wrong. Yet avoiding apologies often backfires. Silence is read as a lack of integrity. Integrity is at the heart of trust. When wrongdoing is admitted and repaired, trust grows. When it's minimized or ignored, trust erodes. Ironically, by trying to protect their position in the relationship, some women unintentionally weaken it. Authentic apologies are not signs of weakness. They are widely perceived, especially by men, as marks of courage and respect. Owning a mistake shows that the relationship matters more than pride, and rather than lowering esteem, it increases it. Studies consistently show that people who take responsibility for their errors gain credibility and respect. In couples, that respect is essential capital. The opposite dynamic is also true. Each unresolved conflict without an apology creates a small debt in the relationship. Over time, it's not the original fault that damages the bond, but the refusal to acknowledge it. Resentment accumulates and communication hardens. But there is a middle ground. The integration solution combines both approaches: emotional soothing and explicit acknowledgement. A woman might offer tenderness and at the same time say, "I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry." The two gestures don't cancel each other out. They reinforce one another. One heals the emotional wound, the other restores trust. Men, too, can support this integration by responding to apologies with grace. If every apology is met with punishment or endless reproach, the reluctance to apologize will only grow. A climate where apologies lead to forgiveness and ammunition breaks the vicious cycle. Understanding the function of apologies also means seeing their role in what could be called the economy of respect. In any relationship, every gesture, word, or admission adds to or subtracts from this invisible account. When someone takes responsibility, they deposit trust. They show awareness of their impact and a willingness to grow. When someone avoids apologizing, they make a withdrawal. The unspoken message is, "Your feelings are invalid," or "My pride matters more than your hurt." Repeated withdrawals eventually drain the account, and often, it isn't the original mistake that breaks the bond, but the refusal to acknowledge it. For many women, this logic feels counterintuitive. Their instinct is to repair gently, to soothe wounds through indirect gestures. And this strategy worked for centuries in collective settings. But in the intimacy of modern couples, it reaches its limits. Men often expect something different: direct language, clear accountability. Without that, gestures of affection can feel like avoidance, even when they're sincere. The solution lies in integrating both codes. Emotional repair is valuable. It restores warmth and closeness, but it needs to be paired with acknowledgement. When a woman says "I'm sorry," and also offers a gesture of reconciliation, she combines two powerful forces: responsibility and affection. Together, they nourish long-term trust. Men, in turn, can learn to see those gestures of care as genuine efforts, even when words are missing. Recognizing them helps create the safe space where admissions of fault become easier. Accountability can't be demanded like a punishment. It grows in an atmosphere of mutual respect. Behind the refusal to apologize often lies a deeper fear. The fear of being judged, diminished, or reduced to one's mistakes. Personal history, past relationships, and the unequal burden of emotional labor all feed into this resistance. Welcoming an apology with grace, without turning it into ammunition for future battles, is one of the most powerful ways to encourage honesty. In the end, the paradox of women's apologies reveals something larger. Men and women inherit different relational strategies, shaped by evolution and culture. These aren't flaws, but ancient tools, useful in their original contexts, now in need of adjustment. Modern relationships built on equality and transparency demand going beyond old reflexes. Learning to say sorry at the right moment and to receive it without weaponizing it is a core relational skill. It transforms conflict into an opportunity for connection. It prevents grudges from hardening and keeps trust intact. Apologies are not weakness. They are strength because they require overcoming pride in favor of the bond. They are a bridge extended toward the other, saying, "I see you're hurt, and I value our connection." Often, it is in those simple words that the true resilience of a couple is found. For those who wish to dive deeper into these dynamics and understand how psychological differences shape relationships, there is much more to explore. Every conflict can become a laboratory of hidden fears, ancestral patterns, and our ability to evolve. If this perspective shed light on patterns you've witnessed, a simple gesture helps continue the exploration. Subscribing to discover more about relationship, psychology, and the tools that make bonds stronger.